You know, I genuinely didn't know what I was going to get with 12 Forever. I remember just somewhat enjoying the pilot, but it didn't grab me too much. Thankfully, the show actually managed to be pretty good, especially since they didn't have much restrictions with it being on Netflix. It actually takes the turns it wants and even has a bit of depth to it that I actually wasn't expecting for it to have, and it's all the more better for it. I genuinely found good enjoyment from it. Too bad with Netflix they tend to hate the idea of good shows.
Shots fired!
The series is created by Julia Vickerman, who worked on the Powerpuff Girls reboot / on Sanity. She originally made the pilot for this series for Cartoon Network, but then took it to Netflix, which was to a degree the best since she gets to have better creative control. Let's just hope they don't screw her over like some other shows. The series' main premise is about a 12-year-old girl named Reggie who doesn't want to grow up and dreams of staying a kid forever. So, Peter Pan, but as a girl.
Okay,
it's not that blatant. She ends up dreaming of a world for her to escape to and remain 12 forever.
I get it.
So it has a distinguishable difference from Peter Pan, especially with how the world is made up, with it including her old toys coming to life whenever she buries something there. It manages to differentiate itself with how the characters and situations carry themselves. It gives you many situations revolve around the idea of growing up and having to accept that things can't remain the same. A good message for the overall show. One gripe I might have is that it is episodic with 25 13-minute episodes, which can be a bit of a slog to get through since you get a lot of filler. It would have benefited if it was more like a 12-episode binge series instead of just this long, clearly weekly style show. But the show is still good, it just doesn't fit as a bingeable show. It probably would have worked better as a weekly premiere show on television instead, but that's more or less a nitpick. It's still very enjoyable and you still get a lot of good mileage from it.
Oh my gosh!
The characters have a lot of personality to them and you find yourself wanting to see what happens to them. The main character Reggie is a hyperactive girl who just enjoys her playtime. She has this key that allows her to run away to her happy, nonsensical place called Endless Island, where her name is 12. Kind of a odd thing, but okay. She basically gets a lot of praise from there as a sort of superhero because she gets increased strength and protects the island. She has a pretty fun and energetic personality due to her wanting to hold on to a childlike innocence. It creates a sense of depth to her because of how much she doesn't want to go through the changes of growing up and leaving the things she likes behind. It tends to get in the way of her friendships some of the time even.
Don't you get it? This is the beginning of the end of our friendship. Todd barely comes here since he started hanging out with her. Well, remind me again why it's such a big deal if she comes here? I came here and you warmed up to me. Yeah, and now things are great. I like the way they are. It's perfect with just the three of us. Why would you want to mess it up?
She has a longtime friend named Todd who basically is just as fun-loving as her. When he goes into Endless Island, he turns purple and has the ability to change into whatever shape he wants. He's a bit more laid back and actually is more okay with growing up, so you can imagine a clash between him and Reggie sometimes. And he even has his own sense of depth with the fact that his own brother moved out and he was good friends with him, and his family dynamic has changed with his mother pretty much leaving him. And it just creates a lot of good sense of depth between these characters that they have these good backstories. And they're not so blatantly stated or handled in such a heavy-handed way. They're done in a more realistic sense. You can understand their emotions about the things going on. They don't have to explicitly show these things. They just show how it affects our characters. And that's always the best type of storytelling to me. The two are also joined by a girl named Esther who has the ability to fly and make whips from her hand. She's pretty much was a loner type until she met up with Reggie and them. She basically had the ability to go into Endless Island before she met up with the group. She tends not to stir the pot and goes along with what Reggie wants, which eventually causes tension to rise. Together they all create a good group among themselves who can rely on each other whenever there's a personal issue affecting one of them. They even work in contrast to each other, with Esther and Todd wanting to grow while Reggie clearly struggles with letting go of her youth. It has a sort of realistic yet fantasy-based reality to it that many can easily relate to. Definitely works as the emotional anchor to the show. It's something that definitely anybody watching can understand exactly what these characters are going through and how they feel about it. You can connect with just about anybody here, and that's just strong on this show's part.
Like if someone asks or whatever, I could say we're friends? Don't make it weird. Copy that.
The world of Endless Island is a complete non sequitur of a place. Everything that happens pretty much makes no sense at all, but thankfully it's done in a manner that's consistent. And the way they use this island is done in a very unique way, with the real world being pretty dull and boring. I mean, it's freaking Iowa of all places. So it makes sense that this place is a bit more fantastical. The inhabitants of Endless Island bring a good characterization to it with how most of them act. You have some citizens that were on the island when Reggie and her friends got there, and some that were made when Reggie buried some of her stuff in the ground. I'm not questioning it, why should you? The people are honestly pretty fun and get a good laugh most of the time because their behavior is just so random.
Why do they fight the food critics? Cause they're giving them a bad review. What will they do?
We'll take him on a bus downtown.
And I'll be driving that bus.
Stop! He's been stabbed.
Oh no, I've been stabbed.
Guys, stop! Oh, the ship has been infected by space germs!
Oh no! Everybody panic!
But not everything is all honky-dory for them. There's also this villain on the island known as the Butt Witch for sort of obvious reasons. Seriously, that is obviously emulating anime framing. I know it is. Also, have fun with their internet, you friggin' weirdos. But anyway, she basically acts as a culmination of everything Reggie hates, with growing up and dealing with the bodily changes she has to go through. She acts pretty creepy with her mannerisms, and it creates a pretty uncomfortable feeling whenever she's on screen, which actually works perfectly with the whole Reggie wanting to avoid bodily changes. She's a clear sign of the changes people hate going through at that young age, so she's a great antagonist to Reggie's more childlike behavior. Her voice does feel a little weird, but I kinda get it since it's supposed to be in the vein of the voice deepening when you get older. I kinda wish they did it like how Dr. Girlfriend from Venture Brothers is done, where there's a hint of femininity to it, but with Butt Witch, it's just a dude voice coming out of a female body. It's just a tad jarring. Also, there's kind of this thing where her name is not actually the Butt Witch, and we just never figure it out. So maybe somewhere down the line we'll figure it out, but I don't know. I guess it's more or less just a nitpick. The world itself can be a good antagonist with some of the stuff it comes up with, like a grocery store that shows the group their most embarrassing memories, and the group manages to overcome whatever the world throws at them. It allows the characters to grow from their experiences and is a good sense of development.
It is just so deliciously delightful to be back.
The animation is pretty solid. It's bright and colorful, which calls for decent background work. It has a generally nice feel to it, but it could use a little bit of shading on the characters. It's nothing that bad, especially since the designs make up for it, but you can notice when watching that it feels a little bit off. It's not terrible, it's not something that you're gonna be like, I can't watch this is just unbearable. It's just a matter of, it could have used a little bit of shading here and there. That's just kind of it. Nothing terrible, you just kind of wish for a little bit of shading. The animation is nothing spectacular, but it gets the job done whenever they need an action sequence or have something funny happen, which can work pretty well. The humor for the most part feels fitting with this world and characters. It's pretty random with how the inhabitants on the island interact with each other, or Reggie and her friends. I get a good laugh from some of these characters just saying something. Doesn't even have to be a well thought out joke, just the craziness of the voice gets a good chuckle out of me. That's honestly a good sign of good execution through the voice work. These voice actors were clearly giving their all, because it feels very fun, like they are having fun in the booth when they were recording these lines, and the show is just better for that. Those voice actors deserve some great credit for that, honestly.
Excuse me!
Oh my gosh, I'm
Why
sorry!
did you do that?
See? What did I tell you?
My house!
Hey, Tasty Troy.
Wanna play Foursquare?
Yeah?
Sad young boy, what a lonely life.
Pretty much pathetic. It's pretty much pathetic.
This is a pretty good series from Netflix. The characters have a genuine feel of adolescence to them that you easily relate to the inner turmoils they go through. They get presented a challenge of growing up and losing their way that's far more relatable than more raunchier outings. The world is random enough that you're kept on your toes as to what happens next. The animation, while not that strong, is still vibrant and colorful and does the job just fine and allows for the humor to land at the very least. The humor is executed in a way that you get a good laugh from it being so random and just having good voice work done. This is a fairly good series that showcases growing without having to get too weird or too detailed about what's going on with the characters' inner struggles, or even having to get raunchy and just plain gross. This is just a good series from Netflix and something that definitely deserves a good watch. But that's just a thought.
Thank you.